Thank you. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to 2020. It's interesting that I was thinking about that today. I think you all. My name's David, by the way, and just somehow I ended up being at the front of this room, and hopefully have something to share with you tonight. But I was thinking earlier about time, and how we set the world up in related to time, like this whole thing around 2020. As if it really means anything. And yet, because we imagine it means something, we can play with it, and say that it does, and we can create meaning around it. And so the meaning that I like to create around it is that it's a kind of a turning spot, or a turning point, or a beginning, or a new beginning, or something that we can measure, that where we made a change in our lives around this time thing. So it's kind of a big deal. The next time we do numbers that are like this, the same numbers like 2020 is 2121, and it's almost, well, it isn't certain, but it's likely that most of us won't be here. Nothing's certain, but it's likely that most of us won't be here for that. But anyway, so welcome. We just a little bit of history for you. We did 7 of these evenings in last fall, and they went. In the beginning, I kind of thought we were going to do a meditation evening. Does anybody think we're here for meditation? Awesome. So, okay, we weren't planning on that, but we will for you. Just kidding. This is the wrong club. We're doing something else. But what it evolved into was that meditation is a tool. And the tool is because some of us, probably everybody in this room, want to use that tool to access an inner source, or an inner power, or an inner connection. And so we meditate to find that calm space, or that empty space, or that still space within us. And those of us who have been meditating for a while recognize that if we do it consistently, that the still space kind of starts to come with us everywhere we go. We develop a consciousness that rides with us, and meditating on a regular basis helps us to develop that. Are there how many people here actually, with show of hands, like meditate on a daily basis, like every day? Awesome. How many people would like to meditate every day? Yes. So I found that. Well, here's how this all started. Right. For a lot of years, I've been, like 40-some years, I've been a spiritual seeker, whatever that is, and sometime actually probably the last 15 years, I imagined that sometime I would be able to do this, and I kept putting it off. I kept, and I don't know, when you meditate, sometimes there's a voice in there, or we get messages, and the messages I've been getting for years is that I could do this, and I should do this, but I really resisted. Does anybody ever resist when they're yeah, and I just really fucking resisted. And I didn't, it's like, what would I have to give? What would I have to share? And so the meditation stools some of you are sitting on was my way of not doing this. I thought, okay, what if I help people create meditation spaces? Would that be enough? And so I went with that, and I went to Indonesia because I was going on a regular basis, and I found some people, and we made 500 of them, and I had this big vision that I was going to help, millions of people create meditation spaces, and so in the process of doing that, I ended up talking to hundreds, literally hundreds, maybe, several thousand people about their meditation. And the answer, what I got a lot, I asked a question was, the question was, people would come in my store. I had this store, and people would come in the store, and I'd say, how's your meditation? And folks would say, well, they'd say, some people would say it doesn't work for me. Some people would say, my mind is too busy, and I can't, but lots of times when they got honest, they would say, I really don't know how. And I'm not sure, I've tried it doesn't work, or I don't have time. People would say, I don't have time. And I think there's a story about the guru who said, the Tibetan master who said, if you don't have time to meditate for an hour one day, you need to meditate for 2. So anyway, I heard that a lot. But so what came to me was that people were saying that they didn't have time because they didn't know the value. And because if we, know the value of meditating, of connecting, then it wouldn't be a matter of time. It would be, it's like brushing our teeth, right? I mean, hardly any of us doesn't brush our teeth because we don't have time. We do it because it's like, we know the value of it. It's like, we want to keep them. So it came to me that people didn't, generally there was a lot of folks who didn't understand the value of meditation. And then something else came, was that there's gatekeepers to meditation in a way. And a lot of times the gatekeepers are people who have a philosophy that they're teaching. And so I was talking to people who thought they had to become a Buddhist, or they had to become a Zen student, or they had to learn some particular brand of philosophy to be a meditator, and because it seems like, or they had to go to a yoga studio. Imagine, and because it seems like that's where. And believe it or not, lots of people are not excited about going to yoga studios. Yeah, could you imagine? And so I thought, why not, help people learn to meditate and not sell any particular brand of faith or connect it with anything, really. So that's kind of how this started. And so for a year or better, we would do this every Monday night I had a store, and we would do it at the store. And then, the store went its natural way, which means it's no longer here. And just, life on life's term, let's let it go. And that's not true. I struggled like hell. And hung on to that thing to the very bitter end. But it was my teacher. So from there, it kind of evolved into this, and what it came up for me was that lots of us are not generally that happy with their lives in some way. There's something missing. There's a lot of people in complaint. Now, that's not a complaint about them being in complaint. It was an observation. And does anybody know anybody who complains regularly? Yeah. Not you guys, for sure, but right. So just meditating, like I believe that meditation is kind of in a way, it can be the slow road to awakening. You know, we're meditating on a daily basis, and I think there's things that we can do to kind of enhance our awakening. You know, and what does awakening mean? Well, we'll talk about that in a minute. But there are a lot of things that we can do to enhance the awakening. And I think, though, that what I want to share is that some of the benefits of awakening, and I think that what comes for me to share is that what does it mean to awaken? I had a guy, actually, Fram asked me today, we were talking about consciousness. He said, what is consciousness? And most of my life, I imagined that consciousness was kind of, you know, the word would seem to mean that if we were conscious, that we were conscious, like we'd be here, consciously. But I always kind of thought it was outside of me. Do you know what I mean? Like it was something I had to attain or get to. And so, but if we are living consciously, or in my mind awakened, then we're aware of what's going on inside of us. And so my plan for this year is to help us see when we're unconscious. And that our unconsciousness actually creates often our discontentedness, our misery, or our unhappiness, or and so what my plan for the next, you know, I want to say 50 weeks, but anyway, we'll see. The next foreseeable future on Monday nights is to look at different parts of how we're living that are unconscious, so that we can become more conscious. And if we're aware of when we're unconscious, then we can move towards more consciousness. And I believe that if we bring our attention to anything that's happening inside of us, fear. Has anybody ever experienced fear? And I mean, fear's like the easy one to see, isn't it? And although it's very subtle, it has many forms. Some say 100, but I think there's way more. But with fear, if we become aware of it, my experience and my study also has taught me that if I become aware of it, I bring my attention to it or my consciousness to it, it evaporates. It disappears. It's always false, unless it's about, you know, a bus coming down the street that's going to run us over, and then that's, you know, a fear comes up and we get the hell out of the road, and we don't even need to go into consciousness of the fear. We just move. Like Nathaniel yesterday. Was that yesterday when? Yeah, you thought that was funny. He came down the stairs and I didn't know he was in the house, and he just scared the living, you know, and I jumped right off, you know, like literally, and that was it was fear, but it was like reptilian fear. It was like, and it was different than the kind of fear that I'm talking about, that all of us at one level are in, you know, in fear of not getting something, or fear of losing something, fear of, you know, being seen a certain way, fear of not being good enough, or fear of failure, or fear of success, or fear of, you know, intimacy, fear of, I mean, there's so many of them, and if we can be conscious and of them, they literally melt away, and we can live free of fear. The more we come into this moment, the more we're present in the moment and practice being present in the moment through consciousness and through meditation, and we can actually live free. And I can't imagine a higher purpose than to live free. And then to think, the trouble with living free, though, is that eventually you'll hear a voice, and the voice will say you have to tell others. It's like, you know, I mean, this is what I think it's a spiritual principle. It really does happen that, you know, as we have realizations in our life, and we're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. You know, I no longer have to do whatever it is we thought we had to do to live and survive, we end up sharing it with others, and which is a beautiful thing. So that's my plan for this year. I have no idea, though. We'll see where we go with it. But that's my plan, is to examine every Monday night different things that are unconsciously happening in our system. And so I want to talk about money. I want to talk about relationships. I want to talk about work, food, how we look, our ideas of who we are, if we're Canadian or global, or, just all of the stuff that we've just adopted, for the most part, as true. Let's take some time this next while and examine them, and go, and look at them, critically. Is this really true? And then we can decide, who we are. And I think that my experience has been that I spent most of my life not knowing who I am. And so having identities, and that I used to be in the tile business. I was the tile guy forever, right? And you could be the school teacher, yes. And there's nothing wrong with those identities, but it's not really who we are. And I was, I've been many things. So, a parent, and somebody's lover, or that bastard who left her. I've done all of those things, and that was interesting, wasn't it? Yeah, that's right. So identities, we'll talk about them, because in my opinion, and of course this may not be true either, but in my opinion, the identities have they limit us. They have a tendency to keep us small. And when we were little, my mom, God bless her, one of the things that she gave me that was what she said, that I couldn't sing. And it's been one of those things that I remember. I was just a little guy, and she said, and she'd called me Keith then. That was the name I went by for years. She said, Keith, you can't carry a tune in a bag. And she probably, it was off the cuff, but I remember thinking and actually being really conscious for years and years not to sing publicly. And it was just one of those little things. And so I think as we go through, that stuff will come up. Little beliefs that you have about yourself, not tall enough or whatever. So those we'll look at and hopefully let go of. And those, as we let go of those things, we become just more conscious, and we start to become conscious of our thoughts and our actions and our belief as a result of that, and freedom can come. Has anybody here ever wanted to be, and there may be some of you who are, wealthy, like financially wealthy? Has anybody ever, yeah. And so don't, I believe that my conditioning around wealth was that I had to work harder. That was my conditioning. Or so I want to explore some of the things this next little while around our beliefs around money, and because we all have different ideas around it, and we were brought up with, I may be poor but I'm honest. Anybody ever hear that? I may be poor but I'm honest. What does that make the rich guy? Or that what was the one about it was harder for a rich man to get into heaven than to pull a camel through the eye of a needle. What the hell was that? So I think that a lot of those things have to do with attachment, not to the actual fact of being wealthy or not. So we'll talk about things like that. So normally what we've been doing in the beginning, and this is kind of like the beginning of the evening, is we'll meditate for a little bit. Everybody has is anybody warm? You must be warm with that hat and coat and everything on in the corner.
I thought this was hot meditation.
It is. That's super. Anyway, we're going to sit for a couple minutes. It's the trick to meditating, if there is such a thing, is to just watch your thoughts. Remember that the mind is a tool, and it's an amazing tool. We'd be screwed without it. Right? We wouldn't be we. And so I think that sometimes the idea that we should be in some way against the mind, or that we should, that the mind isn't, that there's something wrong with the mind, let's let go of that. Or if it comes up, just recognize that it's a tool. It's an amazing tool. And somehow we've let it be the boss. And so through meditation, when we just watch it, and so we're sitting and we just watch the mind, watch the thoughts, and it'll do what it does. And the trick is to just not get attached. When the thought comes up, oh my God, I left the keys in the car, or whatever. It just let it go. Or what am I doing here? It really is hot here. Just it'll do things because it wants attention. The mind is generally self-centered, and it wants attention. And so I sometimes treat it like a child. I say it's okay. We're safe. We're just going to meditate for 10 minutes. You okay? And so just talk to it, and not out loud. But recognize that it is your servant in a way, and so we're going to relax into just sitting and watch the mind. And so we'll close our eyes, and James, will you give us 10 minutes? For those of you that are watching, if you're watching the video, find a comfortable position to just sit in, and I'm going to do a little bit of guided, and then I'll just kind of take you in and drop you off. Is everybody comfortable? All right. So when we close our eyes, and I'm going to take a couple of deep breaths and just feel the breath in the lungs. The breath is a vehicle. The mind is a tool. The breath is a vehicle that brings us right into this moment. Conscious breathing is an amazing tool. So just breathe in. Let it out. Breathe in. Let it out. Just bring your attention into your body. Just for a minute, bring your attention into your feet, your legs, your knees, your thighs, and into your hips. Just bring your attention into your lower extremities for a minute. It's another way of being here and being present. Feel your belly and your back, your hips. Breathe into your lungs. Just feel your shoulders. Let them drop. Just let the tension out of your body. Just feel your neck and your jaw. We hold a lot of tension in our jaws. Just let it go. Just let it drop. Just take a breath in. Just imagine that the oxygen in your lungs moves into your blood and into your heart. And that oxygen is light and it goes through your whole body. Just illuminates every piece of you, every cell is illuminated with that light. Now you're here in your body, in your breath. Tell your mind it's safe. And that you're just going to take a little break. We'll be back in a few minutes. Take your time. I talked to a friend today, a buddy of mine, who's called me about a friend who's going through a hard time in her life, and wanted to talk to me about this, and he doesn't know it, but he was the inspiration this morning quite early of what I wanted to bring to this today, because we didn't really talk about his friend, we talked about him, and I asked him, how's he doing, what's going on, and he said, I'm working on 4 businesses. He said, I have 4 businesses I'm working on, and a new relationship, and a dog, and kids, and it was just, I got tired listening. Holy shit, and I realized that, that our conditioning generally is that we've been told if we focus on some idea of success, that's where our peace would come from. That's where, achieving has been our conditioning. And I bought in myself. I bought in most of my life to this idea. I actually have a confession to make. I sought spirituality so I could be more financially successful. A lot of my life. And thought if I got right with whatever that is, I would be more successful in relationship. I'd be more successful. So it was all to get something.
Did it work?
No.
Well, see you later.
So you can all go home. Sorry. And it seems like we have to get our asses kicked big time to really surrender to, there's a lot of names for whatever it is that we're surrendering to. And I like what Eckhart Tolle talks about, the power of now. Because what he's basically saying is, be here now. And what's come up for me is what is in the moment is all that there is in the moment. And that we, for the most part on the spiritual seeker's journey, have no real idea what it is that we're looking for. And we generally try to fit it into our concept of life, which we want to understand. And has anybody ever noticed that there are like 3,000 concepts of God. And, it's just endless. The Tao, the now, the Father, some of us are involved in the 12-step world. There's a lot of concepts: the director, the employer, and so there's many, many concepts of whatever it is that we're looking to connect to, but nobody that I know can describe it. There's nobody. I've never, even in the beautiful writing of the Bhagavad Gita, which I've read many, many times, and even in the Bhagavad Gita, it's beyond really description when Krishna tries to describe it to Arjuna, or to it's beyond description. So there is no. So we try in our, because many of us were brought up in a Christian homes or whatever. We were given some concepts, and for our little minds when we were little guys, probably like children, really quite connected, and we were taken out of that and given this concept and taught all about. Right and wrong and good and bad, and so we were taught a system for living, and that most of us recognized was really limiting. We couldn't be in our truth in the moment because we had all these rules, and so it was hard for us, and some of us, rebelled, said, "To hell with this! It's not working for me," and I was one of those guys at 15 on the street in Toronto, and 17 in the street in Vancouver. I was on an adventure, right? To me, that was an adventure, and because I didn't know how to fit into that idea that our society, our cultural society, had given us, and I don't think it works. Maybe it works in a management way for lots of folks. But I think there's possibilities way beyond that set of rules or conditioned beliefs that we have, and I think we can access those. I believe I know myself. I access those when I am here, when I'm courageous enough to be in my truth. Courageous enough to walk across the street and talk to somebody that I felt a need to talk to. JR and I were talking about this earlier. As a man, most of my life, if I felt a need to talk to somebody, if it was another man, I would think, well, something's going on. We need to chat about something. If I feel like I should be connecting with Jason, I'm imagining, well, something, maybe my old conditioning was it might be business, it might be, if it's a woman, my old conditioning was, my go-to conditioning was, well, maybe we're going to hook up, and that's just, the limiting beliefs and conditionings that we have, and so we're loaded with them. But how do we, at one time, most of us probably in this room would have considered ourselves spiritual seekers, if you will, because we're not sure what to call what we're doing, but we're looking for something more than how we've been living and how we've been dealing with life. And I think if we look around us, I can't say that it's not working because it's perfect, but it seems, I just have this imagining that there's more. There's, and I've always felt that at one level. I remember being a kid, like 12 or 13, laying in a field down in Kings County, New Brunswick, laying in the grass and thinking, wow, this is friggin' awesome. How did I get here? And I was straight, or not, I was high on the moment, and that happens now. It happens now, you know, where it's like, oh, when I'm really present. Sometimes the beauty is so cool where we are, but somehow we got corrupted. It's like in a way, like a virus in the system, in the digital system, and we've somehow come to believe that we're not who we are, and who are we? You know, let's imagine. Can we play with just imagining that I imagine that we're these like amazing spiritual beings. You know, not a novel idea, we've all heard it, but I imagine that that we're like these amazing spiritual beings that can have and be and do anything that we want here. Anything. This is a playground. And that we can, you know, we're free, you know. And then we go to school and they tell us all the rules, and, you know, and we buy into a whole idea around relationship and getting married for life. Imagine. Sorry. It's just like, we make commitments to those things, and we get an education to be a friggin' engineer. Just kidding. But, you know, nothing wrong with engineers. But, and we buy into it. And so there's all kinds of limiting stuff that gets laid on top of us, layer over layer over layer. And there we are, you know, what do I do now? You know, and there's, what's interesting, I think, and I don't know why that this is this way, but the place where there's the most freedom, we somehow don't get, you know, nobody tells us about it, you know. And I mean, lots of people are telling us now, like Eckhart, I mentioned, and Michael Singer, and there's so many guys that I love. They're in the Bhagavad Gita, of course, and you know, I've been listening to lately is the Tao Te Ching. Have you heard of it? It's amazing. And Stephen Mitchell did the interpretation of the Tao. You should just, oh my gosh, you know. But somehow we thought that we had to achieve and do stuff, and so everything was outside of us. You know, you had to go to school, and you know, and you know, learn how to be social, and somehow we missed all of the possibilities about learning about how we were feeling inside of this body, and we felt uncomfortable. You know, does anybody remember? Probably I'm an older generation. I remember my dad saying, "You stop crying. I'm going to give you something to cry for." Can you imagine? You know, I was like 6. And stuffing all of this energy. They call that, what do they call it now? Oh, what's that that doctor's name in Vancouver that does all the work with, yes, and Gabor does work with trauma, yeah. I guess that was trauma, wasn't it? You know, we all got the, you know, shit kicked out of us as kids, and to try to bend us into a form that worked. And so I think that our highest possibility, our greatest potential, is to examine those things and watch them as they come up, and let them go, and literally learn to live in the moment, in our truth, and risk stuff. I was years with a teacher, and I was kind of shy, like Armand over there, shy. I was shy. It's so good to see you here. And I remember that it was hard for me to talk to girls, like really hard, you know. And I remember I started to like at 13 or 14 when I discovered drugs and alcohol, and you know, and then had courage, and yeah. So years later, I had a teacher. His name was Paul, and Paul really challenged us to go into the uncomfortable things, you know, because freedom it is not only in being conscious and aware of what's happening if we have a fear, but I believe freedom is in actually going into the fear, you know. And one of my fears when I traveled with Paul was, you know, I was so afraid that I would be rejected, and that, you know, and so generally I would make up a whole scenario. Well, if I go talk to her, this is, you know, this is, you know, whatever, maybe we're going to end up together, and I'm actually already married, and so I wouldn't even go talk to her, you know. And Jared and I were talking about this earlier because my go-to default idea about talking to somebody who was of the opposite sex was that we were obviously going to, you know, it was nowhere in my concept other than that we were going to end up in the sack, and you know, not a chance that we'd be friends. And so, but that was conditioning. Does anybody recognize that conditioning? You know, am I the only guy? Okay. You know, yeah. So that was my conditioning, and I remember one time years ago I'd been traveling with Paul, and he really did challenge us. He challenged us to go with things, to, you know, to reach out and especially around the relating thing, because it's the area that we're probably the most contracted in, you know, and the difference between open, expanded, you know, feeling and this contracted feeling, you know. And for me, a lot of it was in the area of talking to, and just, I mean, how simple and fundamental can it be that we've spent most of our life afraid to talk to people of the opposite sex, and so he used to really encourage us over and over again to just go with it, you know, just be, you know, stop and talk, and I've actually taught lots of men since, you know, to just practice in the lineup at the coffee shop, just talk to people, you know, and say, hi, how are you? You know, it didn't have to mean anything or go anywhere or ever talk to her again, and, you know, just say hello. But that's, you know, seeing the simplicity of how fear keeps us small. Just that little fear of, oh my God, what if she doesn't like me? You know, or whatever. It's just such bullshit. But anyway, we got conditioned into that, and then most of us got conditioned into a safe work environment, you know, or we got conditioned into, you know, our beliefs about money. My mom, who, you know, I credit with a lot of my beliefs, had an idea around money that was not. Mom didn't believe that there was enough, you know. It was a huge idea of lack, and that there was, you know, and she came out of the 30s, and had this cultural idea, or this, you know, New Brunswick idea, I don't know what it was, that, you know, that there wasn't enough, and I got it, and so, and it's a belief that I never, you know, haven't examined enough. But James and I are still working on examining our ideas around money, you know, because what if I had no idea around it? What if I just had an idea that I was, you know, some sort of a child of God, or connected to this universal intelligence in each moment, and that everything that was needed would be, you know, I would have, that nothing is missing, and my idea was that that something was missing. Actually, my concept when I'm in my conditioning is always that something's missing. And that there needs to be more. I need to do more. I need to get more. And if I'm really present, I'm really feeling in this moment, there's a stillness that there's nothing missing in. And I don't have to, I get that I do not have to worry about anything. You know, and it never, it just only recently got to me, I think it was in the parable when in one of the Jesus stories when he talks about be like the lilies of the field who have no concern, you know, as far as we know. and you know, and or be like a tree in a sense that the tree isn't thinking, oh my gosh, it's cold, you know, it just is. So that's what I am imagining that we can get to this year. And the other what I'd like to do is to create some like a group support for that. Do you know what I mean? So that we're all and I think that there can be quite a few of us this year talking about consciousness. There's some great books that I'm going to recommend that because you guys know about values. I believe that for most of us, awakening or consciousness or you know, freedom, if you will, from conditioning and belief systems is really not that high on our value system. You know, imagine if it was the number one most important thing. You know, if we thought, well, there's anything more important than being here now, being present, you know, looking at where my thoughts and beliefs keep me from being present, looking at my old unconscious ideas about myself and examining them and talking with my friends about them and letting them go, and so that I can blossom into, you know, more, not more in a sense of more, but so that I can be who I am. And who we are is amazing. And people, you know, we've been hearing that, haven't we, forever? But we have a yeah, but, you know, I'm losing my hair, you know, some complaint, right? It getting old, you know, and so it's in there. It's in the psyche, and we're going to see if we can bust it out this year. And bring us into a place of, you know, a higher level. If we could even just get to unconditional love, you know, where we're living unconditionally loving, free of judgment, free of fear. That's not much to ask for, is it? No. And I think that, you know, that's my 2020 goal for the group, for all of us. and you know, and it's not easy work though, because we're attached to our beliefs. Just you know, let that sink in and think about it. There's safety perceived in our ideas about ourselves, in our what's that, Nathaniel? Yeah. And the thing about it is that it's we all have blind spots. You know, like we can't see it. That how we imagine ourselves to be is not true, and the intellect wants to know, well, what is true, and it's not my goal to give us another set of beliefs. It's not my goal to bring us to another doctrine or another dogma. It's I believe that the highest possibility is to have that conscious contact, to be connected to the source, and let that flow. And you know, if it means we all got to go do 10-day meditations, whatever, you know, there are some fun things to do. There's a friend of mine, Trevor Thibodeau, leads a thing called the Enlightenment Intensive. It is tough work, but it's we sit in a dyad and you do you ask a question. It's a koan. Have you ever heard of a koan? It's like a Zen. A koan is a name for a Zen question, and the Zen question that you ask for 3 days, 16 hours a day, is tell me who you are. Wow. And has anybody ever done it? Have you? Yeah.
I have PTSD from it. It was hard.
Oh.
It was really hard.
Yeah. So he's doing a 7-day coming up.
I can't even fathom 7 days.
I know. I'll tell you a quick story about that. I did a little bit of this in 94. In 1994 in Bali. I was in a group, like a longer personal development consciousness group. I thought I was going to Bali. We were actually in a compound for 30 days. I could have been anywhere. But anyway, seriously, it was neat, but we were in group with this amazing teacher, consciousness teacher. And so one day somebody came and we started doing this work. And there was very little lead up to it. I had no idea what we were doing. I was just a country boy from, nowhere, had never been out of the country, and here I was in Bali with all these amazing teachers, and this guy came and he started doing this work. So we were sitting, and I got physically sick. Yeah, I crawled out of that room at about 3 or 4 hours into this thing. I swore I'll never do that again. And for 25 years, people in my circle all around the world that I know have said this is the quickest way. It's the quickest road to, to realization that there is. And I was like, yeah, whatever. It's like you. It's like, I'm like, oh, no way. And my son, who's Regan, who's 26, actually, when I closed my business in August, we were sitting in the parking lot at Earl's over on 4th Street, and I admitted to him that I was scared. I didn't know what I was going to do, and I wasn't all of that confident about. I was in my shit, and he said, well. And he's 26 years old, right? He's been to India, he's been to Pune. At that time, he'd been twice for a month. He's amazing. And he said, you need to find something that's going to really shake you up. You need to get shook up. And I'm like, we're sitting, we're in the truck in the parking lot. And he said, what about the Satori experience? And I said, no way. He said, great, that's it. And he did. He had no idea, and he didn't know that Trevor had one coming up in 3 weeks. And when he said that, and when your son tells you that you have to do the one thing that you didn't want to do ever again, I was like, oh shit, okay. So it is difficult, but it's so I got there so fast, like a day and a half, and I was there. I was like, oh my God. And it is this stillness that I had felt before, but I had always thought, like I've been in groups, longer groups where I felt it, awakening consciousness groups where I'd felt it. And because my point of reference was always drugs, I thought, wow, this feels like something in the water, what did they give us? And, I always connected it to, and now this time, because it so clearly came out of this process, and I realized that all of our stories were bullshit. Everything, all of our ideas about ourselves are just not true. And I had this experience that never went away. It's been amazing, and I sit in such quiet now, And you know, it doesn't mean that I don't get upset or that I don't have stuff or that I'm not, you know, don't have feelings or that fear doesn't come in, you know. But nothing seems to stick anymore. It's an amazing thing, and so I'm so grateful to my son, you know, for kicking my ass and you know, leaving no other door open. So that's one of the things that I recommend this year that, you know, we could all do. It's you know, he's going to actually do a 1 day. You know, I think a 1 day is just a tester. You know, it's just a. But I don't. Oh, good, we're still okay. I think 1 days are fine. And there's another thing I'm going to recommend this year is breath work. How many people have done breath work? Yeah. So there's another Trevor that I recommend. Trevor Elric? Gosh. Yellick. Trevor's amazing. So the breath work releases DMT. We actually make DMT in our body. It's made in what gland?
Pineal.
Yeah, and so breathwork takes us into another dimension, and we start to see the expansiveness of this place, you know, because our conditioning has made us small and contracted and fearful and looking for safety, and there either is no safety or there's no danger. Do you know what I mean? Either nothing's safe or everything's safe. And in a way, if we can get to a place where we realize that there's nothing here can hurt us, nothing. We, you know, I don't know if I want to tell you that we don't even die in a way, you know, but that's a whole other story. And so breath work is amazing, and I want to recommend this here. Dance. Who likes to dance? Yeah, you know, how many? I'm really. I know it sounds crazy, but dancing, like ecstatic dance, can bring us into our bodies. Can bring us into, you know, we can lift us into another dimension, literally, and there's freedom in it. So I know that sounds, you know, kind of crazy, but those are three things that I recommend that we do this year, and dancing lots. And we're going to do sometime, is it March or 16th? We booked it. There's a big room at the end of this, down here, that has a labyrinth on the floor. Some of you been in that room? It's a beautiful room. It's like 3 times the size of this. And I booked it for a Saturday in March, when we were going to do a whole day thing, like a 10 till 10, which, you know, we'll do some breath work, we'll do some dance, we'll do some dyads, it'll be a full day of you know, us really looking at our conditioned beliefs and our stuff. We'll meditate, and we'll eat, like we'll do potluck, and so we're going to do that. I believe it's March. I wish I should have the dates better. And so that's some of what's going to happen this year, and all of it towards really dropping the mask and letting go of our stories and our belief systems about ourselves and about each other, you know, because we're. Does anybody ever judge anybody else? Just saying. Yeah. So imagine that we could, you know, just play with that. You know, we could have a dyad where you and James sit together and you share with each other what your first judgments were. Yeah. And we do what I like to call inner dialogue. So without screen, just what's coming up, just let it out. You know, everything goes through a filter, right? Our filter, our careful filter, you know, I want to be liked filter, So we'll get to play with and drop the filters, and so those are kind of the plans that for this year. Oh, there's more. We've been doing potlucks, and what happens at a potluck, is we get to know each other. We have community, and we get to know each other, and but with the idea, at our potlucks we don't drink. Just saying, so there won't be any fights. Because that is another way of getting to know your friends, and most of us have been through all that. So we have like a potluck. We're doing one. James, when are we doing one? 2 weeks from yesterday. What's that? 19th. Is it? Will you still be here? Awesome. Nice. So we're gonna have a potluck, and we can all come together. Oh, share, Dana. What's happening? No. Oh, come on. You two are fun.
Another day I'll share.
Will you? Right.
And the diet.
Okay. You're safe here. You can share your innermost.
No, it's okay.
All right. Fun. So anyway, that's that's what the plan is. Some of it, I don't know. It all kind of came out tonight in pieces. But 2020, let's focus on, let's see how we can bring awakening up in the value system. How we can, because our conditioning tells us that no, money. I got to make money this year, or there's no way I'm going to do another Christmas without being in a relationship. I got to find a guy or a gal, or both. Yeah. And I need to take a trip this year. I need more time off. I need to change my job. All of the things that I got to lose weight. All of the things that we think are things. I think all of those things can happen. I think that all of that they're good. Nothing there that isn't, amazing and perfect. I just get that if we have them through our struggle, through our will, they're empty. And the new guy, 2 or 3 months down the road, he's like kind of like the old guy. It's never happening. Not again. That's what we say. It's the illusion. It's never fucking happen again. No way. I've done that. I've learned my lessons. There can't be another guy like that anyway. And then we do it again. And because we are coming from our conditioning, we're coming from our idea of ourselves, our limiting belief, and of what we're worthy of and what we deserve, and boring, But my thought is, if we're connected to Source, and we practice it, and we drop the stuff, we actually see what's blocking us, and let them go. That we can have and be and do. We can be free. We can be free and live in a van. Not a bad idea. I got one. So, do you know what I mean? It doesn't have to be what this idea of what we think is freedom. I think that it can be free in this way. Anybody have any thoughts?
I have one.
Mm-hmm.
You started the night talking about just numbers, and that it's 2020, and you keep repeating the word vision. And I just thought it was interesting that 2020 is the numerical value we give to perfect vision. It's a good time for excellent sight, I think.
Yeah. Insight.
Clarity.
Yeah. It's funny too, because it's kind of a contradiction to be talking about vision and being in the moment. It's like, I don't know if how do they go together? But yes, 2020 is perfect.
Yeah.
Someone here just also said insight, so if you use it that way, then it's in the
moment, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And always looking inwards as well.
Yes. Yeah. Well, that's what we want. 2020 insight.
Yeah.
That's what I mean is possible. And look, exposing ourselves so that we can see where we're stuck is where the work happens, I think. You know, because we live in at different levels in denial. You know, and some of us who, you know, dealt with our grouser handicaps are aware of what I'm talking about. You know, but the work gets finer, right? Yeah, the work gets finer, and you know, we're no longer sleeping in the car drunk, and most of us, and I'm just kidding. I don't think you are either, but some of us have, and those are, you know, so those things have gotten cleaned up. A lot of that stuff is behind us, and now, you know, how would we like to live? You know, being connected, like really connected each moment. And it requires, I believe, some practice too. And I have been a lifetime reluctant meditator. I'd like to say that, you know, I started meditating at 25 when I got cleaned up and sober, and I practiced every day. It would be just total bullshit. You know, you know, I didn't. You know, and it took years to find somebody to actually teach me. You know, and my idea of meditation is not guided. That's just so you know. My idea of meditation is not guided. The little guiding that I do is just to bring us into the body and bring us into the moment with the breath and stuff. I think when we're guided, then we're still in our heads. You know, we're listening, we're thinking about what, you know, and I mean, I've had some great trips with people guiding me downstairs and all, you know, some really amazing guided meditations. But I think that the highest possibility is when we sit quietly and just, you know, be in our breath and just be here now, and then everything can just open up into an expanded state, and we're no longer us. You know, we're no longer this, and that can happen in a sitting. But I believe that practice, if we, you know, we all do our best to meditate on a daily basis, even if it's only for 10 or 15 minutes in the morning and 2 or 3 hours at night. Just kidding. I have friends that get up at like, what time do they get up? The Kundalini people?
Oh, 5.
5. God bless the Kundalini people. Anybody doing that?
I get up at 5, but I'm not a Kundalini.
Yeah. Do you meditate at 5?
I get up at 5 every day.
Wow.
Every day. And I practice and drink my coffee till 7, prayer and meditation.
Nice.
Keeps me away from the thinking.
This guy Vishnu from Mind Valley. Does anybody know who I'm talking about? He's amazing. He's up, I think, at 5 and doesn't touch his phone. I know. You know, sometimes I touch my phone before my eyes are open. and he doesn't touch his phone like till 9, like 3 to 4 hours of meditation and workout and all the things that he does before he picks his phone up to see, you know, do his messages. It's a tool, so I'm really amazed at how attached we all are to that thing, and I need some help with that area as well. So anyway, any other thoughts about, you know, maybe going on this journey together this year? Jara?
I want to say that I'm so grateful for this room full of amazing people. There's so many people here that have become such treasured loves, and even people that I've just met tonight, your treasured loves, and going on this journey with all of you is such a gift. So thank you. Huge gratitude to everybody in this room, and especially you, Dave.
Hmm.
Gratitude.
Thank you, Jerry. You're amazing. So, what's exciting is we don't know where we're going. We have no idea, you know, and or what could possibly happen for us in this year. But I think that if we have some intent, holding it lightly, not too tight, holding it really lightly, to become more conscious or more aware of who we are, what's going on in the system, be patient with ourselves, you know, as we wake up to what's, you know, who we've been, who we are, and then wake up to who we can be in each moment when we're connected. You know, I think it's important to know where we're coming from, like an inventory, you know, of our beliefs and our ideas, and watching our reactions, and you know, and how feelings. Anybody have feelings? You know, I know, and we only want certain feelings, right? You know, so to be in the feelings. Oh, can I tell you a little story? So I had this teacher. His name was Paul Lowe, that I had for years. I was with Paul for like 14 years, and I traveled with him. And Paul had been for a long time with Osho, and he was Osho's lead guy. Does anybody know who Osho is? And so Paul was with Osho, but Paul had made a life about awakening. Like, he had traveled the world. He'd, you know, his story of searching for people who had what he was looking for is amazing. And he found Osho, and he ended up being with Osho for years and years. He was in the ranch in Oregon. He was in India. He was the lead guy. He was the lead therapist with Osho. And so when I got to be with Paul, you know, it was after Osho, and he was like, we'd sit with him in the room, and he could just literally project love. We'd be together for a day or so, and it would be like I used to think we were doing MDA. I would think, oh my gosh, we were like, oh, it was so beautiful, you know, but this a level of acceptance and kind of, well, I'll call it trust, came in, so we would really start to share what, you know, ourselves. But anyway, I had Paul on a bit of a pedestal. It happens, right? And I kind of also put father on him. You know, he was older, and I made him my, you know, I projected dad on him, and anyway, and I remember we were in Bali in this group, and it was like we're 31 days. We never left that damn compound. We went so deep. It was unbelievable, and the exercises we did, and it was just, and we lived there, and we, you know, it was, anyway. So it was the last day, and he was packing, and Paul had a love. Her name was Ava, and Ava, in what we were doing, there was no, it was open. The whole place was open. It was, you know, there wasn't any, unless people didn't want to be open, but I mean, there was no boundaries in the sense of, if you were attracted to somebody, you went and shared that you were attracted, and if they were attracted, then, you know, you could spend time together. And it was just, but and if they weren't, then you weren't. And I actually learned, this is a side note, I learned for the first time in my life that I could say no. I had, most of my life, my conditioning was that if somebody wanted to be with me, I was like, you bet, you know, and I didn't know that I could say, well, no, I'm not feeling that, or that I could tune in and actually be with somebody in a conscious way. And so Paul was packing, and I went up to see him in his room to help him, you know, just to be with him, really, because I loved him, and he was packing, and he was crying. There was tears running down his face, and I had somehow imagined that he didn't feel. Do you know what I mean? I had thought he was beyond feeling. And I said, what's happening? Oh, he said, I'm just feeling some sadness or some you know, but the thing was that he wasn't in any reaction or denial. He just was allowing it to come through him. And what had happened was that Ava was with somebody in the moment, and they were off having time together because everybody was the end of the group, and he was having a emotion. And most of us have been conditioned not to feel, or to say, you made me feel, and as if it was wrong. And I learned almost my biggest lesson of the whole 30 some days in that final moment, that like, oh my gosh, it's okay to feel even unpleasant feelings and just be in them and let them move through us. And so it was beautiful. And so I suspect that this year, let's commit to feeling, to, even if it hurts, even if it's not what we want, because I think running away from certain feelings keeps us from really experiencing our full potential in life. I think that we're trapped by not wanting to feel this or not wanting to feel that. And so if it comes up, it's meant to be, and feel whatever it is. And I think to talk, the other thing that we sometimes do is if you're feeling something, somebody else will come and try to not say it's okay, you don't have to feel that, to take it away from you. So allow each other to feel. And remember, if you're upset because he's feeling something, it's because you probably don't want to feel it either. Do you know what I mean? It's so just it becomes then a safe container going forward, that we can be in our feelings, and we can allow each other to be in our feelings, and do shit together like that. Anyway, anybody got any thoughts about that before we wrap up? Show of hands, who's up for feelings? Feelings? I know. Yeah. So, what did you say?
I said good ones.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, anyway, so freedom is in going through the feelings, going through the fear, and I think having a group to do it together, is and not we can't all be committed at the same level to moving through stuff, and that's wherever everybody's at. Let's try to be accepting and watch where we're at, and does anybody know anything about active listening? Yeah, in the practice of active listening, we just nod our head and listen. And say things like, wow, I hear you. And because we often want to offer advice. And so, it makes it a safer container if we do less advice and more listening. And it's more love, more acceptance of each other when we're, because we've all been through a lot of the same stuff, and we want to say what we did. And there's we can say things like, are you open to some input? Or can I share with what happened for me in that? And then, we ask permission. It becomes a way to give back if we feel the need to, and tune into whether we're just doing it because we want to not want, we're looking to get something, or whether we're doing it, whether we're checking in out of love. Gosh, we covered a lot of ground, haven't we? Yeah. So I think that we're going to meditate for a few minutes, because I don't know what to call this. you know, we've been calling it a meditation group, but it's really, it's going to be, I think, a lot more than that. And
You did give it a title, Path to Awakening.
oh, yes.
We workshopped this.
Yeah. We did. Path to Awakening. Did you see that crazy picture James put up of me? It's just like, yeah, anyway. So everybody up for like a 10-minute meditation? When we're finished the meditation, we'll be finished. And feel free to, like, we don't have to rush out. Feel free to hang out and spend some time and get connected. And we're going to be back here again next Monday. And a couple of quick things. We have a YouTube channel. Love it if you just go on and subscribe. It makes me feel good. We're all about feeling good, right? Yeah. and
There's a gift on the way out too.
oh yes, you guys know I had this store, right? And there's a whole bunch of stuff that my Scottish blood wants to hang on to till I'm 90. And so it's really be good for me if you take some of it. It helped me to move through my idea of there not being enough, and that, yeah, it's hard, to give things away. And so it really helped me if you took, some incense or some banners and just, yeah, to have incense and banners at home. There's lots of incense, but I think there's probably a banner. There should be at least one banner for each of us. And they're like those Tibetan prayer flags, yeah. So yeah, they're our gift tonight, and the incense is for. The nice thing about incense is it can be used to bring us into the moment as well. I mean, everything can be really, but. So we're ready for. We'll do another little 10 minutes, and then we'll finish up, and we're going to put up the event for that in March. We'll get it up this week, and I yeah. I have a question. So this thing in March, we're going to do potluck, and I'm not vegetarian, but I was thinking of making that day a vegetarian day. What do you guys think? Okay. So it makes it a little more difficult. Well, no, I can just bring chips, but for some of us it makes it a little more difficult to cook. But we can do potluck, and we have a kitchen. We have a full, and we'll do vegetarian. You're a vegetarian? No. All right. We're waiting for Jason. Thanks, buddy. We're going to meditate for a bit. Thanks, everyone. So when we're done this, when James brings us back in 10 minutes, I think we're done. I'm going to hang around if anybody wants to talk a little bit. Oh, the other thing, a couple of things. I have to make a living, and I want to do this. This is all I want to do. And so I'm going to do one-on-ones. If people want to come and, I don't know how that's going to shape up, but this is what I'm doing.
Are you a shaman?
No. What do you want me to be?
The answer is always yes.
Well, I could be. I think that, yes. JR, am I a shaman? Okay.
You're amazing.
No. What is a shaman?
It's a label.
Hmm?
Shaman is a label.
Yes, that's what I thought.
The story.
That's what I thought. So, absolutely. I just want to put that out there that this is kind of a side story, but I had a guy call me today who's dealing with a lot of stuff, bipolar, has to deal with his struggle with drinking and all of that. And over the years, although I'm very, very active in the 12-step world, I recognize that there's a lot of other things that we can do to support in that area. So I'm open to that as well. If somebody that has rejected the traditional methods that we know of recovery, I'm open to working with those people as well. And so I don't know what it looks like. I'm just sharing that I'm open to that. I live in a house with 3 other guys, so my cash flow needs are minimal. It's pretty exciting, actually. It's like, so yeah, I'm open to one-on-ones and doing whatever we do. Oh, I'm sorry. One more thing. There was this guy, his name's Chad, and is it Chad? Yeah, and he's approached me last year. He's from, he kind of lives New York, LA, and Calgary. You can see the connection, and he has kids here. But he does a lot of promoting online stuff, and he's built this whole course around 6 of us that are teaching different things. So I'm doing this online course with him. I think it starts on Tuesday nights, and then he's going to market it, and and so he's doing all the marketing, and he's taking, he has these amazing pictures and done a bio and all of that, and so it's totally separate from what we're doing here. But I just I'll send it out, and I don't know where it'll end up, who will be part of it, but it's not as intimate as this. I think it'll be just an online training program around meditation and consciousness and that kind of thing. And I'll send it out so that if you have somebody that lives in Moncton or Sussex or whatever that would love to be connected in some way, you can send it to them. And you can send these too, this thing that we just did, because it's live on Facebook. Okay, that's it. That's it. Okay, love you guys. Thanks so much. What a beautiful evening for me, and I'm just so grateful. So we just close our eyes, and the breath is just magic. The breath brings us into the moment. We breathe in through our nose into our chest. When we breathe in, if we let our belly just relax. We actually breathe into our bellies. I like to just remind everyone about their feet, their calves, bring our attention into our knees, to our thighs. We don't talk about it much, but if we're in our hips, we can just feel ourselves, like just kind of go right into your lower chakra, into your sphincter, and just feel your whole body. Hips, belly. If you breathing and your energy down into your lower body, and you give your sphincter a little pull, you can feel the energy roll right up your spine. And just feel it. It rolls all the way up into your neck, into your back of your head. Anytime you want to feel that, you can just give it a little tug, and it pulls the energy up into your spine, into your head. Just imagine that that energy goes into your skull and your whole head expands. Every sound in the room is not outside of your head, it's inside. And we expand to include the whole space. And each breath is your breath. Each breath is our breath. Just remember, if thoughts come up, surrender them, let them go, and breathe. The breath brings us back into the moment, into our bodies. Just come back when you're ready. No hurry. Thank you.